What's up, YouTube? Back again, and I wanted to talk about a few things. So, I'm actually going to do a little bit, talk a little bit about astrology. I'm going to talk a little bit about tarot cards. And the reason that I'm actually talking about this is due to the fact that I came from a household that was, I mean, I know it's not as bad as some other households that go to church, but like we didn't really believe in like stuff like that and everything, and certain things we didn't know anything about, we deemed it demonic or devilish. I don't know if that's a word, but we didn't really pay any attention to it. But the more that I've been on this spiritual path, the more that I've run into these. So with astrology, I know some people are familiar with it, of course, but astrology is like according to when you were born, what type of person you're going to be. Sometimes it can give you a prediction of like the upcoming week, things like that. Now, the thing is that I don't receive anything negative. I don't like to look up stuff and it says like, well, you go have a bad week. I don't believe in that. But with certain things, when it talks about like old people coming into your life and things like that, it's kind of interesting. And it does have to do with the planets. When it comes to God, I feel like everything was placed in a certain order in a certain way. Now, I'm not saying by any means that God couldn't do things without these things being in order, but I do believe that God is an organized God, and I think that he is smart. I know that he's smart. So instead of it being that he handpicked and made every person a certain particular way, it was just the case that if you are born in a certain time of the year, it gave you certain personality traits. It made you like certain things. And I do believe that when it came down to that, of course, like, because some people try to blame this on their like sign ultimately, but of course there are certain other qualities that have come from the way that you were brought up, certain experiences that you've had in your life. I think all of those things have to do with what makes you a person. So I'm not by any means saying that all because I'm this sign, that's why I'm so evil, whatever. I hate when people do that because ultimately it's up to you to rectify anything that's wrong. I mean, if you want to be a good person, then be a good person. But I'm saying that to give you something to think about with astrology and things like that. Mercury in retrograde, that's another thing that has to do with astrology. And I'm telling you, I didn't believe in this, but Mercury in retrograde happens. And I don't know how often or whatever, but I know that last time it happened, I broke my phone, my glasses, and all of that. But when you're looking at this, a lot of these things happen to make you realize certain things. And I mean, at the same time, this still does relate to God with trials and tribulations when certain things happen, or certain people will come back in your life that you didn't have closure with, that you can close that up with them and have a better relationship with them, or have to let things go, find things out, to be more forgiving. You get what I'm saying? All of those things that I'm mentioning within there are still qualities that God wants us to live by, going through things, forgiving others, things like that. Now we're getting into the big one, because so I recently got into tarot cards. Before you don't you hit that X. Don't you X out of here. Don't you click another video. So this is what we're going to talk about. So the reason I got into it is because I follow a YouTuber on here called Lavender. I'm going to link her below. She has some really awesome self-help videos, self-care. Love, 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 love her. And I promise you I wasn't going to watch it because I was still thinking of that whole mentality of how I grew up, like, that's a bad thing, don't mess with it. But I was like, you know what, let me just go ahead and watch it because I like her videos. So the thing is that she actually got this same tarot deck, which is the Fountain Tarot, right here. Let me zoom in. And she was talking about how she usually does it for certain things that she needs help in her life. She's not the type of person that wants to know every week and things like that. Now, let me first get into what are tarot cards, because we have all this picture in our head of these movies with the death card pulling out and somebody's finna die and all of this stuff, but it's nothing like that. True enough that it is more well known in the Wiccan community, people that consider themselves like witches or warlocks and things like that. However, again, I feel like intentions matter with a lot of things. Secondly, when you want to get into this, I was under the impression when I first got into, like when I first like started looking up, like, well, how do I say this? I was under the impression when I was a kid that tarot decks were something that psychics use, as I just said, and that it was something that could, quote unquote, predict your future, and that it was just something that you were supposed to stay away from, and all of this stuff. So the thing was is that after researching it a little bit, watching that video by her, I found that it's actually a connection to higher self. For those of you that are not familiar with higher self, let me just let you know what this is. So basically, if you look up the definition of it, I know like on Wiki and stuff like that, it talks about this is basically yourself that's closer to heaven, it's closer to God, it is your all-knowing self. So I like to explain it this way because I feel like this is the best explanation that I can say. I feel like as a soul, you basically were having a conversation with God, and you and him, he talked to you and said, you need to work on this, and I need you to release these, I need you to do this while you're on earth, and I need you to do that. And you were like, okay, cool. And you went down into a physical form, but when you came to this physical form, you do not remember any of that going on up there. Your higher self is very aware of this. So when connecting to your higher self, you're connecting to your all-knowing self. If you want to view it as you are connecting to God, I'm not by any means saying that I am God, but I'm saying that I'm connecting to the higher self to be closer to God, to have a better understanding about things. Secondly, tarot cards do not predict the future. This is another one that pops up. I am not able to ask cards, are you going to die tomorrow? Everything that you're asking has to do with things that you did in the past, ultimately, and how it can affect you now. So, for example, questions that I have asked for tarot readings, and I did some on myself, I did some for my sister-in-law, and for my husband as well. I asked questions such as, how can I get my life together? Or, am I going in the right direction? That's a really good question. But I'm never asking anything like, well, am I going to be rich tomorrow? Type of questions. You get what I mean? And this also is a good way to raise your vibration. It actually helps your intuition, because ultimately the cards are going to tell you so much, but then you have to go by intuition when you're reading these, because your intuition would be able to explain it. And let me tell you, when I've done these tarot readings, for the people that I did, they were spot on. It was freaking terrifying. And I mean, yeah, just weird. So when it comes down to it and everything, I just try to get people to not be afraid of what they don't know. And if you are afraid of it, research it to learn more about it. And you know, the thing is, when it comes down to this, I feel like this is a great way to be able to connect. I feel like we have lost connection to God. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with just praying. If you want to pray, that's perfectly fine. But when it's coming down to a lot of things, there are different ways that we're able to connect to ourselves, to enhance our abilities with intuition and things of that nature. And this is good practice in doing so. So I am going to link below where I got my cards, because they don't look all, that was another thing, they don't look all scary. They don't look creepy at all. They're very beautiful. And if you guys have any more questions about it, please link them below. I just wanted to make sure that I talked about it a little bit, talked about connecting to your higher self. And yeah, so you guys, I will talk to you later, and